Welcome to Creating from the Heart, the Artistry of Living. I have with me today my good friend, Dr. Kuhn Hong.
Thank you.
How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you for visiting.
I appreciate it for your invitation.
So we are here to talk about a man who has turned from, I suppose he's a physician always, but he has turned into quite an artist. He has been all over the world painting everything his eyes can see. Have you always been interested in painting?
Well, as a matter of fact, I was interested since I was a very little boy. But in Korea, immediately after the Korean War, it was impossible to pursue my dream because my parents would not let me.
They thought you needed to earn money or something?
Because my father told me artists and musicians would not make a living in the third world, particularly after the war. So you have to worry about the food on the table before you enjoy anything.
Okay. So you postponed your interest.
Well, I gave up. I didn't postpone. I did not plan accordingly.
You didn't even try.
Actually, I went to medical school as a second choice to make my father happy. But as soon as I entered the pre-med, I found out there was an art club. So over the weekend, we gathered in the small room to paint together, giving critiques each other. And then we had an annual exhibition. So I did have experience of that during pre-med as well as medical school. So I did not give up completely.
Perfect.
And I had an experience of producing my paintings as a final product. And I had to put up frames and ask the people to enjoy it and then give me some critique. So I did have a feedback from that experience.
And they thought it was great, I bet.
Yeah, and we had several professors supporting our group, and I gave some of my paintings as a present to them as a gratitude of what they were doing. And I never sold any paintings from those activities, but I really enjoyed it. But when I came to America,
when was that?
1973.
Okay.
That time we had a Vietnam War.
Yes.
Engaged by not only America, but also South Korea.
Right.
And in America particular, medical centers, university hospitals, they suddenly lost all the young trainees to war. And they had a lot of empty spots for the training. So they decided to invite a foreign medical graduate, fill the blank. And some of our friends and the classmates were able to even go into the university hospital for training. But I was not that lucky. I just ended up with a training in the just community hospitals, except for the fellowship I did at Rush University Hospital. So that was a unique opportunity for the foreign medical graduates come to America to the residency training and the fellowship. And after the training, I decided to stay in America just for better life and for the better future of my children. And while I was practicing medicine, I put all the painting tools aside, never touched them because I was so busy in practice. and raising children.
What
And
was your practice?
I was a radiologist.
Okay.
It was a hospital-based practice, so I did not have to deal with the patients personally.
Mm-hmm.
All we had to do was read X-ray films and
Right.
CT scans and so forth. But actually, I had some interesting story that to share you. When I first landed in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
I was not able to communicate in English.
Oh my goodness.
So communication was a big hurdle.
I can imagine.
So
How did you get past this?
well, I arrived in Chicago without having any contract of internship. I stayed at my friend's house, who was 1 year ahead of me. He advised me certain things, including how to pass the interview.
Uh-huh.
So we wrote down some of the script to answer, and I memorized overnight. So when the question was asked, I regurgitated from memory. So I fooled the medical director.
Oh my.
He thought I was able to
Speak
communicate.
English.
But the first day on the job, he found out I could not speak a word. So he had a big trouble.
He had
He
a
just
problem.
put me in the surgery. So surgery rotation, primarily you had to assist the surgeons in operating room, hold the retractors, what we call, and make the surgeons do all kind of the procedure where you're just
Well,
holding.
you were holding things to keep them from collapsing, right?
So 4 months in surgery, I was able to hear something,
And learn.
but I was not able to speak. So that was 1 year of experience. And after that, I had to go for residency training. Clinical medicine, like internal medicine or surgery, was out of question for me. So I was looking for other revenue where I can go for. And when I found radiology
Mhm.
was dealing with the pictures of the body images,
Right.
I said, picture? I can handle that. So I went to radiology training. And at that time, we did not have a CT scan or MRI.
Right.
Everything was a two dimensional views,
Uh-huh.
and you have to imagine in your brain. And for that, I
You
was
were
able
well
to do it
trained.
very well. So I was able to finish the training.
See, you had the right gifts.
I can pick up small things very
Uh-huh.
easily.
Uh-huh.
I can remember that, and I can reproduce that.
Uh-huh.
So as a physician, as a radiologist, I had a gift of my talents in artistic training in the background.
Isn't that amazing? And that made your art, in a sense, your artistic eyes made it possible for you to put bread on the table.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
I was successful radiologist,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very unusual to have a radiologist stay in one job. Some of
Really?
them are relocating to other places,
Mm-hmm.
even change the states
Mm-hmm.
or universities and so forth. But I stayed in one hospital 34 years and retired from the first job.
Well,
But while I was practicing, I was interested in visiting foreign countries as a short-term medical missionary.
Mm-hmm.
At the beginning, I was inquiring organizations. At that time, we had no internet
Right.
or anything like fancy. All you have to do is write a letter, or you have to pick up the phone and ask about it. So when I inquired about, I'm interested, join your group, can I go to the medical mission trip? Oh, thank you very much for your call. What is your specialty? Radiology. No, thank you, we don't need you.
Oh,
So I had to wait for a few years. And then
they didn't need you because they didn't have equipment, or?
we are talking about visiting a country where there's no electricity,
Okay,
not to mention about equipment.
yeah, okay.
So they are primarily interested to recruit medicine, pediatrics, or
Right.
surgery like that.
Mhm.
So radiologist without any equipment is useless.
Mhm.
So that's why they declined my offer. But one organization called me. The boat is leaving from Amazon River, and they need one more physician to fill in. Are you willing to uh, take care of patients with a stethoscope without any X-rays? I said, well, I haven't done for more than 10 years, but I'll try.
Okay.
So I joined that group, and the first day we had a brainstorming session, talk about what kind of medicine they were bringing and what kind of patients we're expecting to see and so forth. And the first day I tried to observe how the other surgeon and internists are doing it. There was no laboratory, there was no x-ray. So all you have to do is listen to patients complain and then physical examination brief. And then all you have to do is give out the medication, whatever we brought in the bag. So after I watched that, oh, I can do that.
So the Amazon was number one?
Number one. And
Did you do this again?
oh, yes, I did. I actually brought my children the second time. So first the trip down to Amazon River, when we were traveling from one village to the other, we was on the boat, had nothing else to do except maybe you talk to your colleague or reading a book. I happened to bring sketchbook with me. I stood doodling. And it was fascinating that my memory came back and I really enjoyed it. So when I came back, I reproduced my sketches and drawing by the copy, Xerox copy, very simple Xerox copy because black ink drawing, making a Xerox copy, almost perfect. So I shared that book of the copies of the sketches with my family members, friends, and also organization who supplied medicine for me. They really liked it because they have received the reports from the physician with a written report
About what they're doing.
about what they were doing, how the medicine was disposed and so forth. And some of them attached photographs. However, receiving the sketch from a physician was the first time, probably the last time they would have. So when I called them the next time, this is Kuhn Hong from Chicago. Oh, I remember. We kept your sketchbook in our file. Where are you going the next time? Oh, I'm going to such and such place. We'll be more than happy to provide whatever the medicine you would like to. So I traveled many countries as a primary care physician while I was practicing radiology. During that time, I accumulated all those sketches and shared with my friends. And some of my friends showed me they had a section of the bookcase in their home that all my sketchbooks are inside of that bookcase. Anyway, so the years passed by, and ultrasound exam, the equipment that came by, very compact one. The most notable is a sonocyte.
Right.
It's almost like the same size of the laptop. And it could be used by battery, although it could be plugged into the electric outlet to recharge. So I was able to bring that sonocyte with me. So before, surgeon was the number one because he could do some open and the sewing and stuff. And now suddenly radiologists are getting a spot.
They could.
Because we could see inside out. So the surgeons are looking at, for instance, a big mass in the neck. Could you look at this thyroid? Can you tell me what is a benign or malignant, what a cancerous condition? So I could look at it. I think it's a benign, but because of such a big size, you should refer to a bigger hospital rather than removing in this location. So ultrasound really helped.
And so while you were doing all of this, traveling and doing your sketches, you began to paint?
Actually, no.
No, when did you begin to paint?
You should understand that I was still practicing as full-time.
Yeah.
As a radiologist, you go to the hospital in the morning, 8 o'clock, before anybody eats the breakfast, because we had some of the X-ray studies done as a fasting condition.
Got it.
So you start 8 o'clock until like a 5 o'clock. If you're on call, you have to stay on, or you can take images by the internet. That's a later stage of my practice. So you may stay up all night, including weekends, Saturday and Sunday. So there was no room for me painting.
Okay.
Until one of the gallery owners in Korea saw my copy of the sketches. She was very much interested to getting to know me. She invited me over, and she went through my sketches. She wanted to offer a solo exhibition. But at that time, she asked, have you done any coloring this? No, I haven't done for over 20 years. She said, well, sketch would not make much revenue. So you better go back to start with watercolor or oil, preferably oil. I said, yeah, I haven't done oil in the past. So I looked for my old painting tools in the closet, dusted off, and many tubes were all hardened, so I had to throw away. And then I got the new brushes. So I started paint in the night after 8 o'clock until 12 midnight or Sunday or so. So I collected a few paintings and brought it to Korea. Did the first exhibition. So that was almost like 20 years or more. I haven't done those paintings.
And then you did them.
And then I started to it. So I kept on doing paintings on the side, but I reached the point that why I became a medical doctor from the beginning. Is that just for me, for myself,
or for
my family? Maybe there is a more reason than I can just become a comfortable, successful practitioner. So after about 20 years of short-term visit many countries, I explored the possibility of retiring early and going to the mission hospital as a second career.
Uh-huh.
So my first choice was North Korea. I came from South Korea. I visited North Korea twice while I was practicing. As you may know, the security, safety are the big concern. Plus, even now today, if you visit North Korea, you are not allowed to communicate with your family or friends in the States. There is no internet access, no phone call. Plus the fact that you will be observed 24/7.
Right.
And I decided probably I have to postpone going to North Korea some years and look for other place. That's why I landed in Ethiopia
Right.
as a second choice. So 2013, I submit my resignation from my associate that I'm leaving. Are you crazy? We need you. I'm sorry, I gotta go. You have
Gotta
to hire.
answer your call.
Yeah, so you have to hire another young guy to replace me. And then I retired June 2013, and August I was in Ethiopia.
Painting,
And
among other things.
at that time, I found out painting in Ethiopia could be very difficult.
Really?
There is no shop you can buy painting tools. And so I learned how to stretch the canvas. I bought a roll of the fresh canvas
Mm-hmm.
and some equipment, tools. And I went to Ethiopia and asked the carpenter to build an easel for me.
Right.
I gave my hand draft of some design, and he looked at it and he made it almost perfect, so I could use that easel. And I found out there was another guy outside who can stretch the canvas with reasonable price. So I did not have to use my technique. I let him do it with some fee. And I found out a place who makes the paint, only few, red, yellow, blue.
So you had to mix.
So how reliable that color will last for 10 years or so, that is unpredictable. But at least I learned who can provide me the basic colors. But whenever I come to Chicago, I bought some painting tools, including the oil colors and like that. So I started to painting on top of what I was doing in the hospital, like teaching the medical students and taking care of the patient. But my guest house room was workshop. All the walls were occupied with the paintings in progress. So I can see that every day, and I can touch up for the next weekend and so forth. So I collected many paintings, and I found out there was a gallery in Addis Ababa, capital city. I had an exhibition over there, and the hospital expanded, put a new wing, beautiful facility. And I saw there were lots of empty walls on the ground floor where the outpatients are waiting. and I put my paintings there. So after that, I brought the paintings to Korea, and I did an exhibition in Korea. There was half of my paintings I did while I was in Ethiopia, and then the other painting during the half of the last part of my stay was exhibited in Wheeling, yeah, which is north side of Chicago, close to Glenview. We have Korean community center. So I did have an exhibition over there, and I'm planning to bring that to Korea to share my second exhibition about Ethiopian motif.
I love how you bring the different parts of your life together and how they sort of wind in and out, and now you're doing it all. That's fabulous.
Thank you. While I was doing my exhibition in Wheeling, Korean Community Center, I invited Ethiopians living in Chicago area. So first time I met them, but when they saw the paintings about their own homeland, they were so impressed, and we made a friend. They invited me over at the annual fundraising dinner, asked me to speak about my paintings and my life in Ethiopia as a keynote speaker.
Woohoo!
So what I did was I explained each painting, but on top of that, I gave the history of Ethiopia. Some of the attendees were youngsters who don't speak their own Amharic language. They don't know much about their heritage or culture. And I share them that how beautiful the country is, how proud that they should be because of the deep cultural basis of their history. For instance, Ethiopia is only African country never be colonized by European. And according to their belief, they keep the Ark of Covenant, the genuine real one, in one of the churches in Ethiopia. And they found the true cross where Jesus Christ was died on it. Whether you believe it or not, it's up to you, but at least that's what they believe. So those kind of interesting things that I share with them, on top of I showed up my paintings, and they were very pleased to see that.
That's great. So the question to you is, if you could give a young person some advice who's trying to decide what to do with their life, what would you say? And last Saturday,
I was invited by Chicago Radiological Society. They had a radiology expo aiming for medical students that were recruiting for radiology residency program. So it's essentially giving the opportunity to the medical students know what is a radiologist is. And I was invited to be a part of the panel discussion of global radiology opportunities. So I was speaking to them, say, okay, you are smart enough to be accepted to radiology residency, and then you will successfully complete the training. You'll go out to practice, make a good life. And is that all you want to? Probably there's something more than that. So I shared my experience that I went to more than 30 countries as a short-term medical mission. Plus, I spent 5 years of my life after my retirement. So you could say, wow, that is way too much. I would like to stay in America, and I don't want to visit the countries overseas or live there for 5 years. But I can say that, yes, there is an answer. Because of the technology has been advanced so much, still I'm reading CT scans from overseas mission hospital by internet.
Uh-huh.
So one is a Sodo Christian hospital in the rural area of Ethiopia. The other one is a Tenwek hospital in Kenya. Third one is a Bingo hospital in Cameroon.
So you can be of service anywhere. You can be of service
Correct.
Anywhere.
Yeah, right. And those hospitals could not hire the radiologist.
Right.
And they could not afford to pay the service to somebody else, except for relying on the volunteers from America. So when you wake up, still you're wearing the pajamas, you can turn on the computer and see how many cases are on. You could read it and generate the report, and just a click away, the physicians from the other side of the world can receive the report. So there are two scenarios. One is the person was involved in the severe car accident, multiple injuries, life-threatening. You could pinpoint to the physician that you have to take care of this organ, that is emergency, and the surgeon can act on immediately to save the life. The other scenario is that the person has some mass in the abdomen. They did a CT scan from the head, chest, abdomen, and pelvis, and I see the mass is indeed a cancerous condition in the abdomen arising from certain organ, but on top of that, the tumor has been spread outside of the organ, already metastasized, which means spread to the lungs and the brain, which means you don't want to do any heroic surgery for that abdominal mass, because the game is almost over. Your responsibility, just comfort the patient, ease the pain, the support, some medications, but don't do anything more than that.
And if it hadn't been for the radiologist, they might have done more.
Probably without knowing, they could open up, and then they regret it, and then patient had a false expectations.
Right.
And the outcome was so bad, the physician and the hospital will get a bad reputation. But this CT scans from the overseas can assure the patient that and their family that your father has a late stage of the cancer. Even if he is in Chicago, he may not get any treatment at all. So this imaging is really helping those. So going back to your question, what would you advise to the young people? Number one, as I said, my father would not let me go to the art school, and he was very happy that I became a doctor. But looking back, he was right in 1960, but not right in 2020. If you're a good artist, you could make a living too. So just the question is, if you really want to go certain things, go for where your heart is. Work hard, regardless of your parents or your teachers, because you may be the only one can achieve something that nobody else can follow. So go for where your heart is. That's number one advice.
Okay.
Number two is when you achieve something, then look for others. Can you share your talents or your resources with someone else who may not have those things? So, for instance, if you're an artist, you could share your artistic talent with some people who may not have a training. You could encourage some people, something like that. So if you're a musician, you could play for your music to somebody who cannot afford to pay the ticket, something like that. As a physician, surely you have a lot of opportunities. I'm reading X-ray from Lawndale Christian Health Center in Chicago for free. You can spend a few hours a day and then help these people who cannot afford to pay the X-ray. So you could pursue your dream and be happy, but at the same time, think others and share it with them.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Okay. And so this is Suzy Vance, Creating from the Heart, the Artistry of Living with Dr. Kuhn Hong.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.